Have you ever had one of those weekends where you get together with a group of your friends and then one by one your friends start getting murdered by some mysterious killer and you're the last one left alive? You never had that? You don't know what you're missing. Thankfully for you, a group of people got together back in 1986 and made a little horror comedy called April Fool's Day. We'll take a look back at this classic comedy horror film on the next Back to the Feature.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Before we dive into our story, let's take a quick look at some of the cast. First up is one of my favorite 80s actresses, Miss Deborah Foreman from Valley Girl fame. Then we have Amy Still, who you might remember being the final girl in a little film called Friday the 13th Part 2. Ken Olent was most famous at that time for a TV series called Riptide. And everyone knows this guy. Yep, that's Tom Wilson, who just 1 year earlier starred as Biff in Back to the Future. Now that we've met some of the main cast, let's get into the story. We meet a group of college friends riding out on a ferry out to a remote island where their friend Muffy St. John lives at her family's estate. And yes, that's really her name, Muffy. It's Friday and it's the last ferry until Monday. The ride out is pretty smooth until it isn't. Skip and Arch play a prank where a fake knife fight sends Skip into the water, causing the deckhand, a guy named Buck, to dive in after him. It goes completely sideways though when Buck gets caught between the boat and the dock. He's injured really bad with blood gushing from his face and it looks like he's missing an eyeball. He's rushed to a nearby hospital by the ferry captain, totally ruining the mood for the group. Muffy shows them around and explains that she'll be 21 in a month and will inherit the mansion. As the group checks out the elaborate dining room, all set up with name cards and Barbie and Ken dolls, Nan mentions that it's just like Agatha Christie. Now I love this reference as I'm a big fan of And Then There Were None. If you're not familiar with that, I'll include a link below for more information.
Hi, my name is Mary O'Toole O'Reilly O'Shea, and
I don't know who this person is, but they kept repeating it, and I thought Arch doing it was pretty funny. That evening, everyone settles in for dinner where Nan and Arch quickly become targets for some innocent practical jokes set up by Muffy, who seems pretty proud of herself. Skip skips the dinner because he's having his own pity party down at the shore while drinking heavily. Back at the dinner, they all drink and toast to their collective friendship, and once again Muffy hits a home run with a prank on all of them as their wine glasses drip down their chins.
April Fool.
Afterwards, everyone retires to their rooms where they each find strange things that seem to trigger them. Harvey finds several press clippings about car accidents, and then his cigar blows up in his face. Nikki gets soaked when the bathroom sink sprays upwards, and then she finds some S&M gear in her dresser. Meanwhile, Arch finds drug paraphernalia in his medicine cabinet, and then can't leave his room because the doorknob comes off. Nan gets out of the shower and hears a baby crying in her room, and she tracks the sound to an audio tape playing in a dresser. The only prank that Kit and Rob had to deal with in their room was that turning one light out caused another one to come on. It irritated Rob, but Kit thought it was hilarious. While everyone is sleeping, Skip stumbles his drunk ass down to the boathouse where he's attacked by a cat just before someone grabs him from behind. The next day, Muffy is a hot mess. Literally. She's dressed frumpy and her hair looks like she stuck her finger in a light socket. Everyone is in a good mood with the exception of Nan. The whole baby thing put her in a foul mood. Down at the boathouse, Kit and Rob decided it's a good place for some sexy time. Little did they know that Skip was going to be joining them. As they're just getting started, they see Skip's dead body float by underneath the floor. And nothing kills the mood quicker than a floater. Of course, Rob just thinks that Skip is pulling another stupid prank and he's pissed. They run outside, but Skip's body is nowhere to be found, so they run back to the house to see if he's there. He's not, and everyone realizes that no one has seen him since the day before. Rob, Arch, and Chaz run off to look for Skip, and Muffy shows up totally clueless. She's a bit more put together than earlier, but still not looking or acting like she did originally. Down by the docks, the guys find Skip's knife with the blade broken off, and they start to wonder if maybe Buck could be the one behind Skip's disappearance. Back at the house, Muffy continues acting weird when Nan confronts her about the baby tape. Muffy claims to not know anything about it, and we see that Harvey is hiding out in the hall listening in. The guys split up and Arch goes looking for Skip in the woods. As he's walking, he hears something moving behind him and doesn't even notice the snake by his foot. With his next step, he walks right into a snare that lifts him up in the air by his leg, leaving him dangling upside down right in front of the snake. Suddenly, someone walks up and kicks the snake away. Arch looks up scared shitless, and then we cut back to Nan sulking around the garden area. Man, that audio tape really did a number on her. Rob and Chaz make it back to the house without Arch. With him now missing too, Kit and Nikki decide it's time to call the police. And it's a great idea, but Rob can't seem to reach anyone on that old-ass rotary phone. When people go missing, evidently Muffy likes to make tea, but she can't. First the phone doesn't work, and now the water doesn't either. No cops, no tea. But Muffy points out that there's a well they can use. Nikki and Harvey volunteer for well duty while Kit is stuck back at the house with weird-ass Muffy. I swear Muffy never blinks. She's got really big eyes. While at the well, Harvey drops the bucket down the well, and then Nikki drops the flashlight in after it. He's too chicken shit to go down into the well to get the bucket and flashlight, so Nikki mans up and goes in. This well just happens to have a ladder in it. How fortunate is that? Unfortunately, it falls apart halfway down and into the drink she goes. Nikki comes up for air and instantly comes face to face with Arch, or at least his head. And then Skip's head floats to the surface, sending her scrambling up to try to reach the ladder. She promptly falls right back in the water, and this time when she resurfaces, she comes up with Nan's dead body. After all that, not once does she get her hands on the bucket or the flashlight. She was too busy playing bobbing for body parts. And poor Nikki is down there screaming forever before Harvey's lazy ass finally climbs down to help pull her out. Back at the house, the phone rings and it's the constable calling. Rob tells him about the murders and that they think Buck might be the killer. He tells them that's not possible because he's been at the hospital with Buck all day. Now that they know it's not Buck, they have no choice but to hunker down for the night, so they go around locking all of the windows and doors. Harvey, being from Texas, fetches his gun from his suitcase. He's ready to stand his ground. Nikki and Chaz decide to go back to the room while Rob and Kit decide to go up to the attic to watch for the constable. That leaves Harvey, who decides to just sit and keep watch on the stairs. Back up in their room, Chaz and Nikki are arguing because Nikki wants to leave immediately and Chaz is just trying to talk her down from the ledge. He tries to lighten the mood by putting on the S&M mask, but it doesn't sway Nikki in the slightest. She leaves him laying on the bed while she goes down the hall for a minute. When she returns, he's still laying there, but now he has his hands cupped over his crotch. She just ignores him and goes about her business, and she finally gets irritated by his silence and slaps his arms, causing his hands to fall to the side, giving her a clear view of his... you thought I was going to say his junk. Well, you're wrong. I was going to say she now has a clear view of where his junk used to be. That's right. Now it's just a dark red bloody wound. As she slowly backs away in horror, someone steps out from behind the door, and she doesn't even get a scream out. Snooping around the attic, Kit and Rob start getting clues about Muffy. The first one is a bit on the nose. Remember the Barbie and Ken dolls from the first dinner? Well, now they're in the attic, and there are 2 Ken heads and a full Barbie floating in a bowl full of water. Well, what does that remind you of? Then there's a bloody Barbie and Ken laying together on a makeshift bed. They see a red light from a flare outside and realize the constable has arrived. They leave the attic and search the rooms for the others on their way downstairs, where they find Nikki and Chaz dead in their room laid out just like the dolls in the attic. Then they find Harvey hanging in another room just swinging. That's enough to drive them out of the house and down to the dock to look for the constable. His boat is there, but he's nowhere around, and neither is the key to the boat. Instead, they find an envelope and are nosy enough to open it. It's a letter to the constable informing him that a mental patient has escaped and was possibly returning to their home in his jurisdiction. The patient, Miss St. John, has been a patient there for 3 years and is considered unstable and very dangerous. They remember that Muffy said she keeps a second set of boat keys in the kitchen. Like Shaggy and Scooby, they reluctantly sneak back into the house through the basement. And they're not in there 30 seconds when they find a large blood trail. First, they find Muffy's clothes all burned up in a cast iron furnace. And then they find markings on the wall that show different height markings for Muffy and Buffy. Did you have evil twin on your bingo card? Because when I first saw this in the theater, I know I didn't see that one coming. The two crack the case as they put all the clues together. It's not Muffy, it's Buffy. Before they can close the case, Rob notices that they're being watched. There's a pair of eyes staring at them through the cutout eyes of a portrait. When Kit pulls the painting away, out falls Muffy's head right into her lap. She screams and we see Buffy outside the window nailing it shut. They run upstairs looking for the boat keys in the kitchen. Just outside the door, Buffy is breaking in with a giant knife. And Rob somehow gets himself locked in the pantry just as Buffy gets in. So poor Kit is now face to face with Buffy the Friend Slayer. She chases Kit through the dining room and backs her up against the doors that lead to the living room. And the whole time, Rob can do nothing but scream for Kit. Just as Buffy goes in for the kill, Kit manages to slip through the double doors and then just freezes. She looks around the room and all of her friends are there along with the constable and the ferry captain. They're all just chilling out. Now I remember sitting in the theater that first time thinking, what the hell is going on? Was this all a dream? She just stands there dumbfounded, and initially they don't even acknowledge that she's there, which added to my confusion. She turns her attention back to Muffy/Buffy, who just smiles at her and stabs the knife into her own hand, showing that it was fake all along. The cat is finally out of the bag and Kit isn't laughing. They all finally look up at her and start cracking up. Not cool, Brewster. And don't forget about poor Rob. He's still stuck in the pantry thinking Buffy is killing his girlfriend. He's freaking out and then a hand grabs him from behind. It's Buck the deckhand with his jacked up face. Buck then gives him a big smooch on the cheek while back in the living room, everyone is yelling April Fools to Kit, who's still pissed. Rob is still screaming his head off and then screams even louder when Buck pulls the latex wound off and slaps it on Rob's face. He then unlatches the door and then Rob flies out of there like a bull at a rodeo trying to throw its rider in under 8 seconds. He bounces all over the place and finally ends up in the living room where he's confronted by reality. Everyone is calmed down and Muffy thanks them for playing along with their little test run. Her plan is to turn the mansion into an interactive murder mystery experience for paying guests. And it turns out she can only keep the house when she inherits it if she can prove that she can sustain it financially. Another big secret is revealed. There is no twin sister Buffy. There is, however, a twin brother named Skip. He was in on it from the beginning. And Buck isn't a deckhand. He's actually a makeup artist. The constable? Not really a constable. He's her uncle. Lies. Everywhere lies. To throw us a bone, though, it turns out that the ferry captain really is the ferry captain. So there's that. With everything out in the open, it's time to celebrate. Champagne is flowing and there's lots of tomfoolery and shenanigans with some of the fake heads. A good time is had by all except for Nan. She's still pissed about that baby tape because it turns out she'd had an abortion in the past. In the epilogue, drunk Muffy returns to her room. She's completely shit-faced, but still feeling proud of her success. She sees a present laying on her bed, and inside is an old wind-up jack-in-the-box. She turns the handle slowly, and when the jack finally pops out, Nan jumps up from behind and slits her throat. Muffy screams, but then realizes she's not really bleeding, and that Nan used a trick razor and some stage blood. She sits there stunned as Nan smiles and says, April Fools. The end. This is one of my favorite horror comedies from the 80s, right up there alongside Return of the Living Dead. I remember having a great time watching this in the theater and thought everyone was great in it. And of course, I would see anything that has Deborah Foreman in it. How many of you saw this in the theaters? And at what point in the movie did you figure out the plot twist? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below to help grow this channel. I appreciate you taking time out of your day and hope you will come back for the next Back to the Feature.